Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our Doctor Sleep movie review. I just got back from seeing the sequel to The Shining, and I'm going to be sharing my spoiler-free thoughts on it. So this is, like I said, a sequel to The Shining, and we follow Danny from The Shining, so the kid in The Shining, as he grows up and deals with learning about the events that happened in the first one and why they might have happened and such and such. And I wasn't really that excited for this one. The Shining's never been one of my favorite movies. It's good, I'm not going to deny that, but horror films just, well, they horrify me. But that being said, I was still kind of interested about this one because of Ewan McGregor. I like him. I was curious to see how they, expanded on the story of The Shining, and I thought they did a really great job with this sequel. Obviously, it's based off of a book, I believe, and so I just thought that they did a really great job bringing this one to life. I thought it was really interesting the way that it connected to the first one, but didn't rely on it, if that made sense. I, having not had watched The Shining in maybe 5-10 years potentially, it's been a little while since I watched it, and I intentionally didn't rewatch it before seeing this one just because I did want to see if this movie could stand alone without having to have recently seen The Shining, and I think it did a really great job of that, being able to incorporate elements from the original movie via certain flashbacks and stuff like that to kind of give you to show you that connection, but not being essential to the storytelling of this. But I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed Ewan McGregor as the grown-up Danny, who's kind of struggling to kind of come to terms with what had happened in his life. And then we also get introduced to a young girl in this one called Abra, who might be going, I don't want to give too much away, but her and Danny have certain thing in common. And then there's the bad guy, Rose, I believe her name was, and she's cool, except she wants to eat people's Shining. And it's like, what? And it's like, okay. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this movie. I feel that this one leaned a little bit more towards the fantasy horror as opposed to The Shining being a little bit more like a psychological horror in general. This one definitely leaned a little bit more on when I say fantasy, I mean a little bit more having lore. We're learning a little bit more about what brought about the events in The Shining, and so I really enjoyed that. This one definitely appealed even more to me, more so than even The Shining. I don't want to say it's better than The Shining, but I think I enjoyed it at least more. I want to rewatch this one, and I haven't really watched The Shining in forever, so I feel this one appealed more to my sensibilities of fantasy, good versus evil, stuff like that. Whereas the first one's just kind of a horror movie. Well, from what I remember, at least I should say. So yeah, I really enjoyed that element of it being a little bit more lore heavy, a little bit more learning about what brought about exactly the events that happened in The Shining, because that's the kind of stuff I sometimes dig. Not always, but I do like learning a little bit more about that stuff for no good reason. I just enjoy it. But so I thought this one did a really great job of balancing the story, giving us a little bit more, learning a little bit more about the lore of what caused The Shining or what happened in the events of The Shining, a little bit more of an explanation, and how that kind of connects into the rest of the world, and what would happen to you if you went through what happened in The Shining and then had to grow up, aka Danny's character. So yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this story, this movie. I thought it was pretty well paced. A couple times it kind of is pretty slow or lingering, but at the same time that's because the feel they're trying to create in these different scenes, create some suspense, create a little bit of but it did a pretty good job of not scaring the hell out of me, I should say. Horror, like I said, I'm not the biggest horror fan. I get a little too on edge waiting for jump scares and stuff like that, and this one did a pretty good job. I only had maybe 1 or 2 times that got me, particularly loud noises, but that's just sensitive ears. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts. I would definitely recommend this movie, even if you haven't seen The Shining or aren't the biggest fan of The Shining. I think this one, even as its own standalone movie, is a really interesting story about this guy who went through this trauma when he was younger, and then having to kind of learn how to deal with this, and maybe helping somebody else with the hopefully preventing somebody else from going through a similar situation. So I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend this. I think it does a pretty good job of not appealing to only horror fans specifically, but not also being too broadened or too mellowed out to not be good enough, if that makes sense. I would just recommend it. Go see it. Go help. These are the types of sequels we should be getting as opposed to certain other sequels we've gotten. But yes, I would definitely highly recommend this. Go see Doctor Sleep in theaters. But yes, that's all my thoughts. Be sure to let me know in the comments below if you are planning to see Doctor Sleep, and if you did, what you thought of it. Pretty sure to avoid any spoilers in the comments just for people who haven't seen it. But yes, thanks again for joining me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.